When everything feels urgent, clarity often disappears. Today, we're hearing a coach's perspective. Our guest, Andrea Baillo, spent years leading teams in volatile industries, and now she coaches leaders who feel buried by constant demands, helping them think clearly under pressure. Hi, Andrea.
Well, hello, Cindy. Thanks for having me.
Andrea, you've worked in fast moving environments where urgency dominates. What patterns do you notice in leaders who successfully create clarity under pressure?
Thanks for asking. It's really a great question. And I've spent, like you said, most of my career in startup environments where things are moving fast and urgency is constant. What I consistently notice in leaders who create clarity under pressure is they tend to show up in three really distinct ways. So, first, they lead themselves well. Second, they're really good at determining what actually matters. And third, they translate their clarity into action for others. I'm going to elaborate on these three things. Starting with self leadership, this is a really big one because if you can't lead yourself, something else will, like the stress, the urgency, or even your team. And what that usually looks like is people are reacting before they're actually seeing what's happening. What I notice is they're able to slow things down just enough to ask, what's actually going on here? Not what I think or what do I assume, not what do I fear, but what's true. Because if you don't have that, you don't have clarity, you just have reaction. And what I see is that they don't default to their usual patterns, be that defending or controlling or fixing or spiraling out, right? They choose how they respond and they take ownership, especially when things are unclear. They're intentional in how they're showing up. That's self leadership. The second is defining what matters because in high pressure environments, everything feels urgent. And that's where people get overwhelmed or start making reactive decisions. They consistently step back and say, okay, what actually needs to move forward right now? And what allows them to do that is that they're not reacting to everything. They're able to separate what feels urgent from what's actually important. They're not trying to solve everything, they're creating focus. And that's what helps the team actually move instead of just spinning and spinning. And the third one is they create clarity for others. This is where I see a lot of breakdown because most leaders assume clarity instead of creating it. You have to create clarity because leaders will say things like, go get this done or hold that proposal together. And everyone walks away with a slightly different interpretation. What stands out is that they make the implicit explicit. They're clear on what we're doing, who owns it, what done actually looks like, and by when. You don't get what you want, you get what you describe. And I stuttered on that because that is Miss Brene Brown. Thank you so much. And then after they have now explicitly said what needs to be done, they reinforce it. So they'll recap it out loud and usually follow up in writing too, because otherwise people forget or they interpret things differently. So overall, the leaders who create clarity under pressure aren't the ones moving the fastest. They're the ones who slow things down just enough to think clearly, focus what matters, and make it obvious for everyone else what to do next. And before I end, I just want to give everyone one thing that they can do immediately to show up with clarity. Now, the easier answer might just be do the follow up, right? That is a great choice. But there's a really great opportunity as well to have some more awareness around what's happening. If you start asking yourself, what kind of conversation am I about to have? Is this an informative conversation? Is this feedback? Is this something tied to someone's identity or how they see themselves? Because that changes how you show up. If it's a data conversation, you'll need to be clear and direct. If it's feedback, you'll need to create space so it can actually be heard. And if it's identity based, you need to be really thoughtful about how you frame it because that's where people can get defensive or shut down. So most leaders don't think about all of that. They just jump in and start talking. But the leaders who create clarity are intentional about how they enter that conversation, not just what they say in it, but how they actually show up. So if there's one thing to start doing immediately, it's slowing down for a moment and asking, what kind of conversation is this? And how do I need to show up for it to actually land?
Thank you for sharing your perspective. Pressure is constant in leadership. Clarity is what leaders create. For more conversations with leaders and coaches, subscribe to the Alefitt channel.